Have you heard the words, as a herd of sheep hears the shepherd's voice and obey? When they that are holed up and ready to defend their property to the death are not attacked and eventually run out of food to sustain them, they will not refrain from coming out hungry and with the same mindset of now I have to defend myself from starving to death. Shrines, relics, where did they come from? And how did that lead me to the faked Hebrew restoration of the Hebrew thing and the Jewish thing, where we got the Einsteins and everyone else? That is what the Lord showed me this morning. And I am enrolled in school now, so I have classes, but this seems important to me. So let's go. I need to disclaim the situation. There it is. You're disclaimed. That thing cures it all for disclaiming. Pictures involving today. We, as a given, you know this isn't real. They couldn't build accuracy 0.04 grade, drop 1 inch every 100 yards so the water doesn't flow too fast 300 miles with a basket on their head and an old guy going like, ain't nothing but another day. You have to understand that's fake. That's not real. You live in fake world where you're not going to get it. We're going to go over some cognates today. I thought it was interesting how they tried to set it up like a trinity. Cognates, they're important. They come from a common parent language, like Babel was one language. The language weren't changed. There was one original language, a parent language. They were confused for a while. How many colors of black do you know? I know you heard of the 50 Shades of Gray. That's enough trouble, right? Who knew olive was black? Or even dim gray was black? I didn't know gray was black. Black, I thought, was black. Venta black kind of reminds me of black. Milky Way black, rich black. They're black. Super black is black, black. Black licorice is black. Black olive is black. Summarizes the complex history of the rock crystal vase. We will be getting into the rock crystal vase. I believe I have left up this auction at the Louvre where they were selling it one. It says it's engraved too. This vase, Eleanor, his wife, gave it to King Louis Mitadultus to his grandfather, the king, to me, Sugar, not sugar, Sugar, who offered it to the saints as a relic for a shrine. For something to be enshrined, it has to be a relic in a shrine. A box is a shrine. It's that holds a relic of something that they believe is like, here's the finger of doubting Thomas who poked it in the side. It says here the symbolism of the vase no longer a surprise to you. 1,000 years ago, more they could, make those easy. They claim, come on now, people. Somehow there were a confusion of 3 different Dennises, and they based their history on that confusion. And so he started making shrines and rewriting history. He's like that other guy that rewrites all the history, Scaliger and Suger. And the vase takes the form of an eagle. Their pagan beliefs, they said, their Greek thoughts, all comes down to a Trinity where Christ ascended into heaven to meet God. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus Christ is the creator God. He is that spirit that when the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 34 or 24, says, God is a spirit. Those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Now, I know we're washed by his blood, by his choice. We've been called, elected, predestined, and adopted to be cleansed by his blood. That's physical. I get it. It's hard for a lot of people unless their eyes have been opened and they've been made alive in God. But believe me, there is no version of history where Christ suffered for the sins of the people, bled and died on the cross, and then ascended into heaven to meet God. That's not the way the Bible reads. You know that. This is what they want, right? Say no more. That's their goal. Why would that be a thing unless there's a cover-up? How a medieval mix-up sparked an architectural revolution. I believe we'll get into that. But come on now, people. 40 objects, 40 prehistoric artifacts in only this tiny little space on a wall. This is one house, and the only part they could excavate, I believe, were these red dots. And they found 40. They built the town in Philadelphia on top of the Lenape village of Indians, and they didn't even bother to bury them. They just built over it. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. So that wasn't the big craze of positive thinking, think and grow rich. Was it Nightingale and then some of the other people along that line? It started in 1920, and so we'll put that in our pipe and smoke it. This young lady said they grounded all these ideas, but he was like the meat sack. They're talking about Tesla and the other guy, Jack, who did the rockets and was a devil worshiper, Jack Parsons. They treated Tesla like a meat sack, and they used him up, and he died an old dried up bag of bones in love with a pigeon. Now, Tesla believed that an entity came and wrote the instructions for all of the, what's that, the Tesla coil? It's the alternator. It's basically the alternator. Wrap a copper around it, run some magnets, and hey, this guy, Nick Fuentes, don't fall for this crap. Don't fall for the RFK, JFK. Some Catholics are going to help us. He's calling out people right now by saying, you call yourself Catholics? This is the Jesuit, the Rosicrucians. They're the same thing. He's in on it. He's not one of the good guys. He's not. He's not going to help you. When they expose a lie, it's to replace it with the lie that the mud flood was not Armageddon. It looks like a sitcom, but she's saying, because they found the biggest Roman treasure in a potato field, and they spent a lot of the end of this video saying they were amazed that the infants and the children were so well taken care of, because it seems like the old notions that people didn't care for their children at that time were wrong based on the elaborateness of children's burials. And not that they weren't burying the other people with respect, but the infants were buried very, very special. They said these infants and young children, they were just shocked. I guess they thought they were food. Yes, it's the thing that really strikes you about the site is the level of care for their children. But and they're burying very, very tiny children. Yes, they're not fetuses, they're children, infants. And something is only on the gravestones of the children. Christ talks about it in Revelation chapter 2, a white stone and given a new name. So the elaborate funerals were for everyone, but the white stones were only placed on the graves of the infants. That's what they showed in their coins. Does that look that much different than you know when was history? He cracked reality. The CIA took his work. That's what they always say. But the people that use the quantum physics to understand frequencies and tell you these things, it's always to trigger a spontaneous physio kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system. Then they get into biofeedback. I had to stop this. They only show this for a fraction of a second, but you can get it. And the scientist of his time, let's see, CIA, September 10th, 2003, not 11th, Kundalini psychosis or transcendence. You should accept it. That's what this guy was kind of hinting at. I stopped a couple of different pages. You can use hypnosis, function of screening incoming stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right hemisphere of the mind. Wow, I think they have them hoodwinked, brainwashed. I know that one of the things he said, look, I'm not trying to say that this is occultic, but they can't be afraid of it. Anyway, I've shown you these things. If you want to screenshot them and read them yourself, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference, in the end, I have found necessary to return, at least briefly, to the impact of the gateway experience on common belief systems. So it's why not? And they tied it into your heart. It's your heart. Our galaxy is in the heart. Taurus is spinning. Here's the white hole of creation. It's sure not the Bible, but it's sure the pictures I use when I'm explaining how the heart is reserved in judgment. The stones are crying out. When turned correctly, the body could become a gateway to expanded systems, so it could resonate with the deeper architecture of, oh my goodness, you're a vortex, you're an amalima, but I guess the new ABCs is anything but Christ. Heard that before. What? It's a precise method of tuning the heart-brain system. Meditation is not disallowed in the Bible. It says you should meditate upon Scripture, what it says. Here's his heart thing. Stop breathing, the irregular figure 13. They got it all figured out, and it's all coming down to the heart with them too. It's this guy, Bentov's Taurus of the heart, and now they're bringing it back. 9 million subscribers are hearing about something that was out a couple days ago. Yeah, they're bringing it back, saying, you know what? We should go back and look, stalking the wild pendulum, mechanics of consciousness, anything but the Bible, because look, he's cool, man. He can do it. He can explain everything without the BIBLE. Look, he was on TV. In other words, we've become omnipresent. Okay, whatever leads to that is asinine and stupid. I don't care how cool your pictures are, but it's the same thing, but they're different explanation. Inner proto space Taurus. You see, they want you to believe that you're the Christ, that the Bible and science and history and everything teaches there's a Christ in you. No, there is not. There's not. He could live in you. He could put his spirit in you if you're born again and things like that. But there is only one God, and you're not that God, and you can't access that. So I was reading this guy. I saw that C-SPAN had something live on, so I looked at it. I knew it would be dumb, but I didn't know it'd be this dumb. Look at that number. Hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions. Anybody? Anybody? I mean, it's a mythical number. Even mathematicians know you can't go beyond really these numbers and make any sense. But millions is nothing compared to this. And these are nothing compared to this, nothing compared to this. And a heptillion is simply a made-up word. And when you look up that word, they'll admit it. I'll show you. Here's that Death Valley. Did we look at this the other day? Nazca Unfiltered, how they just left them all buried, and it was, look at that. Man, I hope I was sharing the screen. I hope I was sharing the screen. Looks like it. So let's see what we got. Preview only. Franz Joseph, King of Hungary, Emperor of Australia, bound to treaty. He started World War I because Franz Ferdinand, the heir apparent, was gunned down. He survived it. He was there to pass the laws, that gave us quantum physics and history and their version of the Bible. Sarajevo, Franz Ferdinand. It's all a part of the plan. Look, they have his voice. Well, I guess he really existed. We'll see what else the Lord can provide on that. Here is Halsner affair,
Brooks or Most, and many more. Whereas the Jews who remained in the countryside were largely rooted in their village and were proud of maintaining their Jewish identity, many Jews who moved into the cities chose a different path, and a process of gradual secularization and assimilation into the surrounding Czech or German cultures could be witnessed. Jews in Prague, for instance, were often jokingly called 4-day Jews, as many...
They didn't build these buildings. This is only their rewritten history, so as they can fool the people into believing that NAFTA is real, Bible is not. This is fake, but this is how in the 1900s, all of a sudden, all these Jewish prominent scholars were given freedom by Franz Joseph because a couple of people were discriminated against and brought Jewish mindset like, what, there's still Jews around?
Of them only visited the synagogue during the 3 high holy days and to celebrate Kaiser Franz Josef's birthday. One big reason for this process is that even in towns and cities with a relatively high Jewish population, many Jews were still only a tiny minority. As a result, many Jews started to identify themselves first and foremost with the Czech or German nations, and their Jewish faith faded into the background.
And then they didn't. And then it was allowed. Let's just jump ahead because this is only a preview.
Voices of the Czech national movement, joined the Young Czech Party, and even served as a member of parliament in the Imperial Council between 1891 and 1893. Masaryk's relationship with Jewish people was, ambivalent. During his childhood, he had been told the ritual murder legend by his mother and his priest.
The ritual murder sacrifice. They accused somebody of it, and it caused a scandal. And they said, we've got to be nicer to the Hebrews. And by that, at that time, you're seeing, the 1880s was Zionist. Let's pick where we want Jerusalem to be. It was that time. This is a preview. I got to find out my school. Now, Ragged Chute Air Plant. Huh. You're not going to believe this. 100 years, no moving parts in a town called Cobalt?
Around only 1,000 people. There isn't much left today. Like many former mining towns scattered across the province, Cobalt went boom and bust long ago, leaving it a shell of its former self. But in its heyday, Cobalt was a powerhouse, a source of a significant percentage of the world's silver and the birthplace of hard rock mining in Canada. But the town had another, less well-known claim to fame, located some 16 kilometers southeast on the banks.
It was a totally unknown claim to fame, except for local tourist attractions. Perhaps you should prepare to have your mind blown by a 100-foot geyser that lasted 100 years and a power plant that did this first cobalt mining, first hard rock mining, and it's still the only trome, Throme, that they decided to build during the Industrial Revolution, and you will not be wondering why in a few minutes.
The Montreal River. Until the 1980s, a spectacular white rooster tail of water shot up from the banks of the Montreal River, sending a curtain of mist drifting across the surrounding woodlands. This man-made geyser marked the site of an engineering marvel, the Ragged Chute compressed air plant, which, despite having no moving parts, reliably supplied power to the surrounding mines for more than a century. This is the story of one of the most ingenious...
Who believes this? You saw the thumbnail. Who believes this?
Elegant engineering projects in history and the forgotten engineer who created it. Silver was discovered in the Cobalt area in 1903, causing a booming mining industry to spring up almost overnight. The silver ore, conveniently located close to the surface.
Okay, so that is good, but what's causing the geyser? This is a mining town. We've seen it all before. What'd you do? It's like looking in a mirror when I still had hair. I still have more hair than Donald Trump.
Shaft depth and diameter to achieve optimum performance. Unknown to Taylor, he had independently reinvented a much older device known as a trompe, invented in Italy in the 17th century and named after the French word for trunk.
That would be the 1600s. When they say 17th century, they mean 1600s. They invented a number zero so they could say, we start at zero.
Trompes were most extensively used by ironworkers in Catalina, Spain, to continuously supply air to their bloomeries or smelting furnaces. In this design, water in an elevated trough or head race flowed down a vertical pipe or downcomer. This was fitted with a restriction, or venturi, which created a suction that drew in air bubbles through a series of inlet holes. The column of water carried the bubbles down to a container called a wind box, where it impacted a platform or bench. The water then drained out the bottom of the wind box, while the now compressed air was drawn out the top into a blast pipe and used to stoke the furnace.
Simple enough.
Steam, electric, and compressed air power to operate its printing presses, but none proved satisfactory. Taylor's 115 kilowatt or 150 horsepower hydraulic plant, which produced compressed air at 358 kilopascals or 51 pounds per square inch, first opened on August the 12th, 1896, and was an immediate success, operating almost continuously until 1953. In 1898, Taylor formed the Kootenay Air Supply Company and built a 450 kilowatt or 600 horsepower.
No moving parts, supplying the electricity to do everything else the miners did without the extra expense that would have padded the Zionist. I'm saying, friends of the Guggenheim Rockefellers et al. Hey, cowboy, what you got there?
or manpower to operate. As you might imagine, many dismissed his proposal as impossible, with one mine owner describing Taylor as a crazy two-bit so-called engineer, self-taught, a little better than a mechanic with a bunch of wacky ideas. And speaking of wacky ideas, if you're enjoying this
So he only made the one thing because he's just wacky. It's just wacky.
bubbles in the falling water column. As the bubbles were swept downwards, the air was compressed to a degree proportional to the height or head of the hydraulic column. Efficient operation required the shaft to be as smooth and perfectly cylindrical as possible, so Taylor designed a special circular drilling platform for the excavators and patched any irregularities in the stone walls using concrete. At the bottom of the shaft, the water column struck a concrete cone sheathed in steel, which separated the now compressed air.
So it's not free energy. You have to build a plant that will last 100 years with enough pressure to shoot the water up. So it's dropping 150 meters, 300 feet or something.
Water level such that when the air pressure caused the water to drop below this level, the excess air was vented to the surface, creating a spectacular 60-meter or 196-foot high geyser that soon became a major tourist attraction in the area. Having no real moving parts, the Ragged Chute plant required essentially no maintenance or intervention to operate, except to occasionally adjust the height of the feed heads, and consequently cost almost nothing to operate. Furthermore,
Well, that's like giving you advice to sweat, stretch, and eat organic so that you won't need a doctor. What if your business is being a doctor or supporting doctors by selling bandages and syringes or shrines? This is a preview, but that's a pretty extensive preview. What I searched next, I was reminded of somehow George Ryan and illegal commercial driver's license. And oh, yeah, he got arrested for taking bribes and had to go to jail. It was as simple as saying, give me money and I'll give you a license to drive a truck. And now they have these, this guy was a Guzman and the other guy is, I think the guy that just killed a bunch of people, 3 people in Florida was a Muslim. So it's never that they just give it to Joe Smith, So it was so that he could be elected governor. And he was as a Democrat because the Republican that was running in Illinois that year was pro-abortion. So the Republicans wouldn't vote for him. They voted for this guy. And he ended up, let's see, well, it ended up being where he would take it for $1,200. $1,200 would get you a commercial driver's license. Back to the rig chute plant and how that worked. I was still hung up on that after I looked up the George Ryan stuff. Very interesting. So this is how it kind of works. Motionless energy. It's a thing. It was by a Hans Kohler, motionless energy. I looked up something. I looked him up, and then I looked up the Magnetro Parata, Parata on Wikipedia because I couldn't believe that they're trying to say what Hans Kohler invented a device called the Magnetro Parata in 1933, and it's our microwaves for today, and that's what changed history, and somehow that's a trome. No moving parts. A cavity magnetron generates microwaves using the interaction of a stream of electrons with a magnetic field while moving past a series of cavity resonators. Electrons and a magnetic field. Well, that's just spending that copper, that Tesla stuff that those entities gave him. I guess they haven't figured out. It's everything. It's won World War II is what they say. This is the invention of the guy that they've been doing this for how long? So there's that. What else we got? more details on it, close-ups of it. It was a free energy Captain Hans Kuhler, invented 1933. It needed no outside power sources to function. I wonder why it didn't make a big hit. It was judged Kohler was an honest experimenter, but no expert opinion was forthcoming about how the unit operated. But eventually, he said, it melted my chocolate bar. So this was from a picture on geoengineering.com. Aerobic anaerobic bioreactor under a mountain after its garbage has been collected. Bioreactor. Huh. So there is a thing, a Trump, Trompe. I thought it was a Trome, Trump. It's water-powered air compressor used before the advent of electric-powered compressor, somewhat like an airlift pump working in reverse. They were using them quite a while in Ontario, in a town called Cobalt. It worked using that Venturi effect. We saw it in the video. I guess somebody saw it and said, I need to make a video about it. Now, the first Trumps, here's one, or a model of it. They're saying that this would work, I guess, because it was the first Trump. Anyway, it's on the situation about them. It wasn't a secret. What are you doing, dude? Get back in your picture. Listen, so this was how the guy invented the water pressure. Okay. You got the water plant going there, shooting up that geyser, local tourist attraction. Well, that's not too weird, is it? Look at it. We know it's a painting. You don't have to waste 30% of your paint canvas by showing us it's fake. We get it. So is any of this going to lead to the water? It's their history. Is this an admission of guilt? Previewing the Catalan process for the direct production of malleable iron and its spread to Europe and the Americas. Oh, all you needed was this machine. It didn't need oil or any, dam up the river or anything else. You could just have made it. You didn't need to dam everything. This is Catalan, 1734. They chose to go in another direction, so it would seem. Was it these guys? The Helsner affair. Yeah, so around that time when they needed to say, stop picking on Hebrew people, and people were going like, what, there's Hebrew people? And they said, yeah, somebody's accused them of that blood libel thing, like the protocol of Zion. And then they go like, no, they didn't really do it, but we made them go to jail for a long time. And then there was the Dreyfus affair. They call this guy a known vagrant. And this was a picture he posed for. Here's the known vagrant that was put in jail for a long time for supposedly killing a 19-year-old Polish Catholic girl when he was Jewish. The very idea. They're ready to string him up. But Kaiser Wilhelm said, no, forget it. We gotta do some protecting because they're smart. They may not be Christians like everybody else in the world at that time. So here are those vases. supposedly mystery vases that they made in the first century at the time of Christ, before the time of Christ. And they're talking about they held on to it to give it to King Louis, and then Sugar got it. Sugar, he advisor to Louis VI and his son Louis VII, fought in the Second Crusade. Right, sure. You know, they have the whole thing. Very confused about Saint Denis. There were three of them, but he came up with his version of history, wrote it based on mistaken, thinking that all of Saint Denis referred to one person when it's actually three. But they didn't care. His history worked, so they stuck with it. And he's the one that started saying we need shrines everywhere. I'll try to get some video backup on that for you later, because without him and the shrines and the relics, because that was another one of his thing, was that all new churches had to have this new Gothic style that was easy for them to build. Sure. It was this guy. And he, you know, could convince them that you can do it. We can work together. A common goal. Sugar and his vases. So here they are. Sugar's eagle. That's pretty vague. They don't even tell you BC or AD. They just put that in there. About 1081. It's, I believe it. AD. Metaphor for Jesus. This is where they believe he's looking, you know. They're wrong in their doctrine. They're wrong in their history. Everyone who says, well, at least I'm a Christian. Are you really? Are you really? Previewing. What's this one? A book about that, huh? So they were selling one at an auction at the Louvre. And they've got its history going back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, they say. Okay. So it exists, it's real, but are we given the right history? And then I got like, why isn't it onyx? Why do they call it sardonyx? That was my morning, really. So there's some sardonyx. I'm trying to figure it out. Onyx is really what you get. And then there's that black onyx that I guess they've been heat treating for over 2,000 years because they like black onyx. But black onyx by itself is very, very rare. Most black onyx on the market is artificially colored and has been for what they say is 2,000 years. Hard to compete with the modern computer generated sculptors. So cognates, false cognates, cognate kinship, linkage. This is only an example where I wanted to spin, back to, there's another one of Sugar's vases. We'll get to those cognates. What is a cognate? Words that share similar meanings or spellings and pronunciations in both English and Spanish. That's what a Spanish cognate is, but it's for any language. There are 20,000 English to Spanish cognates grouped in 100 topics and 20 themes. That seems like it's the same language. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that have been around, you know, I've told you, you already know Spanish. And now I'm going to prove it. Where are those cognates? That was it. So here we're under C's. Cultivate. Cultivar in Espanol. Oh, that's too hard. I can't learn it. Culture. Cultura. Oh, I never learned that language. It's so darn hard. Cylinder. Cilindro. I can't understand what you're saying. destiny, destino, despot, despota, despario, despera, despair. It's going to go, it's the same, credit, credito. Oh, I could never learn that language. It's clicks and buzzes. You already know that language. Numero, number, the connection between 8 and ocho, that's not enough. Nativo, native, natural. Maybe this one's easy enough. You know it, but they don't want you to know you know it. What is Rabitico? Scale of music, traditional scale of music. Paco doesn't even remember this. Oh, this is a group of this is the precursor to the mafia. A desperate kind of urban Greek music, musical synchronism. They had their own music. Now, these guys could play their music, but they were also known thieves, is what their history says. Bodyguards for gambling joints is how they, gypsies, I think. It's the same pictures. Beginning of the mafia? Could be a stretch, could be true. So anyway, it comes back to this type of music led me to these. What is this one? Longhouses. Oh, this is that a man traced a creek and found that they had built on top of a Native American village. Even though they had promised to be friends, it seems like Pitt from Pittsburgh admitted that he lied. Well, I had to lie to them for the first 20 years. And they built it right on top of their town. I don't know if the Lenape died in Armageddon. That's where I'm leaning. This was a long, complicated thing, but some of the things they found, clay pipes, glass beads, 2 gun flints. And this was all underground, and they only were allowed to search very few holes because it's underneath a very famous bookbinder's restaurant. Moving on, previewing ISBN, that's what I wanted to search. I did a little dyslexia thing there. Found out that this was the first computerized situation for books. They needed this or they wouldn't have been able to do the barcode. So that's weird enough. And the barcodes are basically binary languages. The IAN is your barcode. It says global standard defines that a barcode format and a unique numbering system used in retail and trade. What they call it, global trade identification number. Well, these all had to start somewhere. And they started before there were zip codes because they were doing books and they needed to come up with a number. There's been some speculation going around the internet. If the Greeks had this 500 years before our Lord and Savior, John the Baptist and Jesus got together to change the world, why didn't they keep going with steam? They had everything else going, the roads, everything, but they knew how to make steam, but it's like the plow never advanced for 1,000 years in their history because it was dark ages. So at the time of Christ, they knew they had already had this for 200 or 300 years, but they never used it. They never went down the industrial road to make it the steampunk industrial age go. The man who invented it, very hard. 3 different of these people, like the confusion with St. Denis, there's 3 people, it's hard to tell them apart, but one of them invented steam. One of them invented steam and dedicated, he was named after a Greek god. They're still, you know, attempted to find, it's still not clear. What is a garum, a fermented fish that it says Romans or somebody was a factory. They had a few factories, but it was sold. They find it all over the wide flat earth, and everybody ate it. It's everywhere. Now, the names of the large numbers, wrapping up this preview, they're just pretend, like a zillion, informally, large but unspecified amount. So these are real numbers. They're actually comprehensible. Anything after it is nonsense. It might as well, they might as well say infinity, because you don't know. You don't know. You know, these are made up words. They can't program them. Zimbabwe printed a $100 trillion note, and they said it was probably worth about 30 US dollars. You can say anything you want when it's fiat money. Now, this town, Makram, semi-desert coastal strip, Gulf of Oman. I do not remember what we'll find here. There's something very mysterious going on there. I did get a couple of emails. The mega fire things is good. Trip to the sea. Was this what it was really like back in the day? The cities look the same. That's a camel. Like quarter of ride. You know, they could make power with compressed air. Are you a vagabond? A vagrant? Finally, in closing, you remember that guy Moby? He's got this video, "We are all made of stars." That's their conjecture that they're going to be sticking with. Now, I remember seeing the video before, and I knew it had some famous people. As I was thinking of the dust and everything else, the Spirit says, let's look at it again. I looked it up online. We don't need to see the video of Moby, "We are all made of stars," but it looks like every guest star has a child abuse past. You tell me. You tell me. Here's the Wikipedia page. It was a #1 song written after the September 11 attacks to express a sense of hopelessness. So when you want to express hopelessness, you should get famous people to direct it, and you should get celebrities who make appearances lip syncing it. Now, Kato Kalin, He was the guy caught up in the whole Nicole Brown Simpson. He was one of the most popular people in Hollywood, hanging out with everybody, was going to break it out, but it never happened. He's made of stars. Vern Troyer, you know him. I wonder when he was little if well, this one, everybody knows what this man was put through. He's tried to get it out. You know, especially it doesn't mention what Lost Boys. Where's Lost Boys? This guy hanging out with this guy on a TV show, hanging out with yikes. I'm just saying, you're there. All new Mickey Mouse Club. Oh, ow, Sean Bean. Well, you know, sometimes they pick out people and they stay famous. Sometimes they'll get little girls to pretend they're, you know, we all, you know, this guy here, you think he is a scarred man? Check out her history. Check out her history. All of these people in one video singing about we're all stars. What? And Bob Evans, film producer who worked on Rosemary's Baby, The Godfather, and Chinatown. Now they're trying to give you a history. It's a lie. The Lord has called me to do this ministry, and I'm going to do it. It started with Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age past. It's now Mud Flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else because we know we're called, chosen, predestined, and elect to be adopted into the family of God. But many are called, few are chosen. You have to be faithful to the end. That means knowing Jesus, what he taught. Amen. Hallelujah. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nachmen. Adios, amigos. That's how I say goodbye.